Branford? Nah, only these old heads call me Branford. Around the way on the block, call me Breeze.
Now, to start this particular breakdown on Breeze, we're going to start on a quote from Sasha Penn, which will serve as a perfect introduction. Breeze always existed as almost this mythical character in the original Power, where there's been arguably more speculation about his character than any in the Power universe, because he's always been billed as a guy who taught Kanan, Ghost, and Tommy the game, and he was seen as this incredibly charismatic and brilliant presence in all their lives, and then there was this betrayal.
Why would Roller do it? We've known him for years, come on, man.
Same reason two former corner boys looked Breeze in the face and shot him in the fucking head.
There's a lot of weight that's been hanging on this character in this role. It's a character I really wanted to explore in Raising Kanan, and I talked to both Courtney and 50 about it quite a bit. So that was Sasha Penn on Bradford Frady, aka Breeze, the man, the myth, the legend, the character the Power fans have been waiting to see ever since 2014, the guy who taught Kanan, Ghost, and Tommy the game, the person who gave a young James St. Patrick the nickname of Ghost, a character that has basically been a figment of our imaginations for the best part of a decade. We finally got to see him in Season 4, Episode 10, and I don't think they disappointed. I think it was the perfect introduction. He didn't need to be introduced in an explosive way where it was bang bang, a gunfight or whatever. There's plenty of time to get to that with Breeze, but it was also even better they were introduced through Snaps and Pop. That's going to give his character even more weight, because we know who Snaps and Pop are, how they're legends in the game, how manipulative they are, respected, and also feared. And well, this is their nephew. But what's next? That's the main question. We've now been introduced to Breeze, so how does he impact the story in Raising Kanan Season 5? How does he have an influence on Kanan? And how do they transition this over into Power Origins? That's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown. We're going to be talking all things Breeze, his introduction, as well as a lot of quotes from Sasha Penn, not just in regards to Breeze, but also the topic of Power Origins and a young Ghost and Tommy. So stick with this video right through to the very end, because there is a lot of information to unpack. But first, let's take a look at some more quotes from Sasha Penn on the introduction to Breeze. I'm sure that the introduction of this character is going to be incredibly polarizing once again for our fanbase, simply because everybody has it in their own heads of who this character is, what he looks like. It was always hard when you cast someone in that role, and everybody has their own ideas in their imagination. So that was Sasha Penn talking to the Hollywood Reporter, and the introduction to Breeze was always going to be a difficult one. Everybody had their own perception and perspective on this character for what, more than 10 years? You only have to look at the last year or two where people thought Ronnie was Breeze, or where many thought Unique was Breeze. Shit, we even had people who thought Famous was Breeze. Everyone had their own ideas. And for Sasha Penn, that would have been no different, except he's the one who had to deliver this character the Power fans have been going absolutely crazy over. Now with his actual entrance, Snaps and Pop were in the area and they thought they'd introduce Kanan to their nephew. We saw him drive in his red Porsche. He's got a different kind of jewelry on. He's got his hat on. Ironically a similar goatee to what Ghost had back in Power, at least in the early seasons of Power. And Shameik Moore definitely just looks the part as Breeze. I've been listening to a lot of different interviews from Sasha Penn, and he said it in a couple of them that he identified Shameik Moore. And the look, the appearance, honestly he is a perfect fit for Breeze. We know how well Raising Kanan have picked out the perfect individuals for each role, and this is definitely one of them, definitely Breeze. Now in terms of what Snaps and Pop said about his character and what he's like, let's take a listen.
Bradford Frady, our nephew. He is one of the brightest minds and boldest thinkers you will ever encounter. He is both a scholar and a visionary, learning and building at the same time.
Now back in Power, Kanan actually said something very different. Again, let's take another listen.
A friend of mine, Breeze, used to live here.
What happened to him?
He got shot in this room. His father and I used to work for Breeze. Breeze was strong, but he wasn't smart. The same routine every day.
Now we can't actually take what Kanan said back in Power too seriously, because we know he was a lying manipulator. We only have to look at what he's been through in Raising Kanan, and even if we were to just take Season 4, the way he's been manipulated by Snaps and Pop, it makes sense why Kanan was able to manipulate certain situations the way he was back in Power. Manipulating Tariq the way he did against Ghost makes even more sense, because of how Snaps and Pop have manipulated Kanan against Rock. That's why in my breakdown for episode 10, we focused on the similarities between a young Kanan and a young Tariq. But in terms of Snaps and Pop, this introduction, he said he's got one of the brightest minds, and he's the boldest thinker Kanan will ever meet. He's both a scholar and a visionary, and I actually have no doubt about that, because if all three of Kanan, Ghost and Tommy learned from Breeze, you only have to look at how they turned out in Power. They definitely would have learned a lot from Breeze, and we are going to come to his influence in just a moment. But I do think we have to touch on these two characters of Snaps and Pop. These are two characters who have really cemented their legacy in the world of power. The influence that they've had on Kanan, and also because they're the ones who've introduced Kanan to their nephew, Breeze. So from a Power Universe standpoint, if we were to now do a rewatch of Power, and we come to the scenes where Ghost and Tommy talk about Breeze, we're not just going to be able to picture their nephew, we're also going to be able to piece and connect the dots in terms of Snaps and Pop's influence, and also their role in the 90s, how they helped shape and mentor Kanan, how they manipulated Kanan, how they introduced him to Breeze, which in turn, later on Breeze and Kanan would then take on Ghost and Tommy. So, Snaps and Pop, they really have cemented their names in the world of power as two of the biggest players, and two characters who have really had a big impact in terms of, well, everything. They were the original top dogs who manipulated Kanan, who made this meeting happen here, which would then later have a big impact on Ghost and also Tommy. So, just before we move over to the influence of Breeze in Season 5, in the words of Snaps,
Legacy matters, Kanan.
his story is a story that I felt we needed to tell, and not just for the fanbase, but also because he's a seminal character as it relates to Kanan, Ghost, and Tommy. We introduce him in the final episode, but you'll definitely see him in Season 5, and you'll see how he influences Kanan, and also sort of teaches Kanan along the way. So we've seen the introduction, they've been through the formalities through Snaps and Pop, and now in Season 5 we're going to get to see Breeze being a mentor to Kanan and also teaching him. We've got one season to get accustomed to Breeze just like Kanan, and we'll definitely be able to learn more about him, who he is, how he carries himself, then building a bond and this brotherhood. I have no doubt Sasha Penn has also been watching Power over and over again. In the interview he did with Deadline, he said they're going to tell a complete story. There are a lot of questions lingering around from Power, and they will tell a complete story before the end of the series. However, for Breeze specifically, they don't exactly need to tell the complete story by the end of Raising Kanan, because eventually his story will transition into Power Origins, but you can imagine them showing, say, glimpses of him being fixated to a routine.
The same routine every day. We always doing that motherfucker had. Your pops knew the Breeze would be here at 7 o'clock. Watch Jeopardy. Nigga loved Alex Trebek.
He was someone who apparently watched Jeopardy, he loved Alex Trebek, and those are some of the things that we'll probably see them incorporate in Season 5, as Kanan gets used to his routine, as he gets closer to Breeze a lot more. Those are the things that he's going to learn, as well as them building an empire together. We still need to see Kanan opening up his car wash business to clean his cash. Maybe that's something we see Breeze help with.
Man, hand-to-hand cash is the move when you wash your money. We learned that from you and your car wash. You remember that?
The bigger Kanan's empire grows, he's going to have to do something with his cash. But who did Kanan learn from? Snaps, Pop, and now Breeze. Cleaning his cash is something we're still yet to see, but no doubt he will learn. So we're definitely going to see them working together a lot, learning a lot about each other, building that bond, building a brotherhood, going on missions together, him learning from Breeze, but also Breeze pulling him even further away from the Thomases. When we talk about the influence of Snaps, Pop, and now Breeze, you can only imagine that he's going to start to drift even further away from the Thomases, including Duke. Duke is someone who's very smart. She said it at the beginning of episode 10. Snaps and Pop, they're always looking to work an angle. She said it would be a classic move from them to turn him against Rock, because that's exactly what they did. For someone who's not in the game herself, she's very smart, and clued on in terms of who the players are. We saw it back in Season 3, the games that they play, and she's also very good at reading people. We saw it back in Season 1 with Kanan. Again, I have got a separate video planned for Kanan and Duke, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it over here, but definitely expecting Duke to come across Breeze as well, and this causing even further tension between Kanan and Duke, which they've definitely already started to plant the seeds for. Now with that being said, let's talk about Power Origins.
Come on, we gotta move this way. Kanan's gonna be looking for us. So he's gonna introduce us to Breeze tonight.
We're very aware of what the fans want, and to the best of our ability, we always try to give them what they want. I think you know between all these shows, whether it's Raising Kanan, Force, or Ghost, God willing we do Origins, and I think we are. People will get the pieces of the story they've always wanted. So, that was Sasha Penn talking a little about Power Origins in his interview with Deadline. He's very aware of what the Power fans want, and I do think it's now going to go from Where's Breeze, who's Breeze, to a lot more of Where's Tommy and Ghost. But I honestly don't think we're going to have to be waiting long at all. The way we got Breeze's introduction at the end of Season 4, I wouldn't be surprised to see a hint or a teaser of some sort of Ghost and Tommy, maybe one or maybe even both at the end of Season 5. I do think that's going to be something that happens right at the end of Season 5 to then set up Power Origins. We've already seen the small Easter egg from episode 303, outside Rock's properties that she purchased, where you could see Tommy spray painted his name. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a glimpse of them right towards the end of season 5, even if it's something small where maybe you don't see them, but where you hear two guys on the stage at Cafe Vu spitting these lyrics from Power.
I like it, she love it. No hesitation, I had to push up on it. I like it, she love it. No hesitation.
So that's just another small little Easter egg. If we were to hear that, we definitely know who they were. I'm sure Sasha Penn knows all about that. I'm sure that's something they'll probably bring into Power Origins at some point as well. But however they introduce them, Sasha Penn knows what he's doing for sure, and I'm sure he'll definitely nail their introductions just like he's done with Breeze. For now, we definitely just need to let the story play out between Kanan and Breeze in season 5. Where do they finish with the storyline with the Thomases, Snaps, Pop, Unique, and everybody else? And then we can look forward to the introduction of Ghost and Tommy, which I am sure will probably come at the end of season 5 to transition us into Power Origins. Just like Sasha Penn says, he's well aware of it. He knows what the Power fans want. We just have to be patient and let the story play out, and when it's time, I'm sure Sasha Penn will deliver the goods to the Power fans. But that's a breakdown of where we are with Breeze at this moment in time, his introduction, the influence that he's going to have on Kanan, how he's going to pull him even further away from the Thomases, causing a rift with Duke, and also Sasha Penn talking about Ghost and Tommy, the transition into Power Origins. Exciting times in the world of Power. The fact that we've now been introduced to Breeze, it does mean we're now one step closer to seeing Tommy and Ghost. But drop all your thoughts down below on the introduction to Breeze. Did it live up to your expectations? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.